Okay, so on to our next lesson, if you're ready. I'm ready. The next artist that we're going to be talking about is Henri Matisse. He was a French artist born in 1869. He was quite the artist in the sense that he dabbled in many different techniques and styles. So he was a painter. He also was a sculptor and a printmaker. Now, what happened to Matisse was that he got really sick around 1940, and he was bedridden. And so he wasn't mobile anymore. He could no longer walk. He was basically moved from a bed to a chair and from a chair to a bed. And he had a full staff of nurses and people helping him. And what happened at that point was that he wanted to still create art. So he came up with all these different tools so that he could still do that. So he came up with all these techniques so that he could continue doing his art. He would put like a paintbrush or a pencil on the end of a very long pole, and he would lay in bed and he would draw on his walls. And he also did cutouts. So he would sit and he would cut out these shapes, and he would get his help to put them on the wall, and he was creating these giant murals of cutout to create this beautiful artwork. And so that's the inspiration for today's lesson. So what you're going to need for the supplies for this project is you're going to need colored paper, scissors, and glue. And if you don't have colored paper but you have white paper, you can create your own colored paper with just white paper and any sort of colors, crayons, pencil colors, or markers. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to talk about is shapes. If you were to think of a shape, you're probably thinking of a geometric shape. So if you're naming shapes right now in your head, which hopefully you are, those are geometric shapes. So triangle, square, rectangle, circle. These are all geometric shapes. And we're going to be cutting some of these out. So I need you to make sure that you understand what geometric shapes are. There are also organic shapes. Now, organic shapes come from your imagination, or maybe they're inspired by nature. So maybe like this. It's like a burst of some sort. And Matisse actually used some, they kind of remind me of like seaweeds or coral, I guess, in his artwork. And that would be another example of an organic shape. So what we're going to be doing next is we are going to be cutting out geometric and organic shapes on different colors of paper. So I've actually already got started on that for you, so you didn't have to wait on me. But I wanted to make sure that you understood which one was which. So I have different colors. I have some that are small and some that are big. I have rectangles and I have squares and I have ovals and triangles. So I made sure that I covered all my geometric shapes. And then I also have some organic shapes. I got this guy, and I got this guy. And then I also did some shapes that are inspired by different types of lines. So you have straight lines, you have zigzag lines, you have curvy lines, I can't figure it out, curvy lines. And then we also have a spiral. That one was fun. So I've already started working on my shapes. I've already gotten started cutting them out. The next thing I wanted to show you is that what you might find whenever you're cutting these shapes out, I'm going to go ahead and cut out the Matisse-inspired shape, the one that kind of looks like a coral. What you might find whenever you're cutting these shapes out is that you accidentally create another shape that's pretty cool and that you might want to use. And that would be this guy. So I cut out my coral organic shape, and this is what I have left. And I'm going to save this too. This is the negative space from this shape that I cut out. But I think it makes a really cool image on the collage that we're going to be creating. So I'm just going to create one more organic shape, and then I'm going to get started gluing. So if you need more time to cut, or if you just want to watch until it's all finished and see the finished product before you get started, it's up to you. So the next thing is we're going to start gluing. Okay, so I have 3 things for you to keep in mind when you're doing the gluing part of this process. The first thing is start with your bigger shapes, because if you start with your smaller shapes, once you start to go and put down your bigger shapes, your smaller, you're going to lose them. They're going to get covered up by your bigger shapes. So we definitely want to start with our bigger shapes. The other thing is that we're going to be doing some overlapping. So you'll see that once you start putting down your bigger shapes, you might be running out of space, but it's okay, 100% encouraged actually, for one of your shapes to sort of overlap another, like this, sorry. Totally cool. The last thing to keep in mind is that you are not creating anything. This is abstract art. So we don't want our shapes to create a house necessarily, or a flower. You don't want it to look like anything. This is going to be just shapes on a paper, creating a collage of geometric and organic shapes that are inspired by Matisse. So I'm going to go ahead and get started gluing. I'll show you the image in a couple of times, in a couple of seconds. I don't know. Okay, so here I am. I've got most of my big shapes glued down. I'm going to keep going. You don't have to use all of your shapes. If you want to use them all, great. If you don't have enough shapes, if you feel like you need some more, put your lid on your glue, cut out some more shapes, and keep going. Okay, so I'm all done, and this is what I've got. Now, the cool thing about this project is that hopefully yours doesn't look like mine. We've actually created this project a few times, and using the same techniques and the same shapes, each one looks entirely different. So I hope that you will share your finished projects, and I look forward to the next lesson with you.